So here's something I discovered. I'm sure you can't wait to hear it. Um, Despite the aircraft hanging overhead and creating its inevitable ruckus, uh, I have said before, I've implied it and I've insinuated it, and I've made it a great issue. I'm really not a cultural Westerner, and it's much to my despair, but also much to my uh, ultimate happiness and sense of reprieve and deep satisfaction that I am not. And I'm saying that a little bit in a mode of expectation that what I say will be proved correct, even in the much longer term, that it will be of benefit to me to not have identified so much or at all with the Western cultural identity. So a little bit of a faith act there, but also an absolute knowledge that I haven't been served by it. So having not been served by Western cultural mores and any kind of possible reciprocation that may be involved therein, I now identify myself as an outsider. I think justifiably. Before I go on much longer, I want to aim a little hair. Sorry. It's like it grows from the head. What are you going to do? It's got only a few options. You cut it off, or you entrap it, or you tie it down. Anyway, I have found myself feeling a little bit more contented these days with a better dietary system. It's actually highly nutrient food, highly specialized nutrients, everything very specific, very balanced, at least in intent, at least with a notional balance. I'm thinking I probably haven't got that quite right yet, but I am working on it to try to feed my hormones and give appropriate therapeutic support to my very debilitated digestive system. That was debilitated, that was destroyed back in when was it destroyed? The early mid-80s? No, I came to Australia in the mid-80s. So it was destroyed in the late 80s, my digestive system. That's when stress overwhelmed me and my digestive system was destroyed. So that's the ongoing patient. That's the ongoing debilitated entity. My digestion needs rapid and ongoing support in order to maintain itself. But I'm doing my best by it in every way, and sometimes experimentally. So let's just pause there for a moment of thought and make our appeasement with our respective deities, and then we may resume as we may see fit. I just wanted to say something. It's actually very important, and I feel a certain degree of happiness or satisfaction that I will not be speaking to the majority on this matter. I know that the majority also think differently from I, and they have different concerns, different obsessions. They are psychologically structured differently, and that's a huge thing. I have a typical contemporary modern middle class or whatever, even lower middle class, or certainly not upper middle class modern mental construction. I would say my original mental construction would be upper middle class colonial, but that doesn't translate into upper middle class bourgeois or contemporary, and I use those terms interchangeably. So I am quite okay at this point to be communicating either with myself or with those very few who may understand me somewhat. And I wanted to say that I should get into this much more deeply later. I actually don't feel I owe anybody anything. I owe myself a great deal. I'm in debt to myself and my huge efforts, but actually other people not so much in terms of what they've given me. In terms of anything that is important or valuable nowadays, there are so many diminishing returns that I can't even believe it myself. But one point I will make, and I will get into it more deeply later, is that I think the critique of narcissism, although it is very important and very valuable, I think it has one element fundamentally wrong. And it's a key element that they have fundamentally wrong. And kind of amazes me. There are so many narcissists themselves or sociopaths themselves that educate us regarding narcissism, and people naturally submit because they are dominated by narcissists. That's a sign that they feel acquiescent to narcissists. It actually is, I know, weird, but look at it. And they naturally submit in order to learn from narcissists about their self-image and what narcissists think their agenda is. And the element of distortion that is built into that narcissism is not ascertained, and it's not taken into account, I don't think. There doesn't seem to be any critique of it. And what I have discovered is that there is a really big difference between what narcissists think they are and what they think they are doing, and what they really are and what they are really doing. The narcissists, they seem to revel in this notion that they are kind of evil, kind of Nietzschean Superman. They're above everybody else because they don't have access to emotion. They're superior because they have this demeanor of apathy and indifference to your suffering. And I think even I, in my perimenopause delusional paranoid state, became very, very confused by that, because you don't necessarily have a proper discriminatory filtering mechanism if you are way hormonal, and you're basically in trouble with your own endocrine systems, held hostage to them. You're going to make some missteps, and I have done. Made a misstep or two. But basically the notion that narcissists are evil. And then they play into this Judeo-Christian notion of good versus evil, this Manichaeanism. Everybody buys into it because they are genuinely susceptible. They are genuinely lacking in some deeper character structure and resolve. Actually, they are prone to develop narcissistic relationships because there's a lack of character structure in modernity. Oh no, but I can't mention that. That makes me seem superior. My upbringing was different. But I'm also prone, as it happens, because I can also be vulnerable if I am under extreme, very extreme duress from my own body. But maybe this can help you. My my current understanding of narcissism, that these narcissists self-promote is, oh, I'm very evil and I'm helping you to understand evil. Now, evil has a lot of implication of depth, and Nietzsche looked into that, and he said, well, like the devil has the widest perspectives for God, because the devil is always evading God and looking around and observing God, whereas God is just static, staying in one place, and being good and righteous, it's really, really limited. So people are attracted to evil because, in effect, what it implies to them is freedom. Freedom to do what you want, freedom to be what you want, despite the imposition of control from mechanisms above. It's a very symbolic thing. And then people are attracted to evil. People want to know more about evil. On that basis, Georges Bataille was very much interested in exploring that psychology and in trying to draw forth any real, genuine, positive outcomes from that, in trying to make people oppose arbitrary authority and so on the basis of their embrace of so-called evil, symbolic evil, that sense of freedom by being away from the narrow, constrained authoritarianism that was represented by a deity. But people are attracted to narcissists, I think, for a similar reason. It's actually not so helpful. It's actually wrong, and it's actually destructive, and it's false. When people listen to the narcissists on YouTube, they're actually misleading themselves, as indeed I was for a while, but I do have my hormones as an excuse. And I'm sure there are uncountable other excuses. But what I have discovered, we call these narcissists evil, and we think they have something both attractive and destructive, attractive and corrupting. But we are just misled by the narcissists and their self-image. What the narcissists really are, they're fuddy-duddies. They're fuddy-duddies. They're not evil. They're fuddy-duddies. They are deceptive. But they're deceptive as fuddy-duddies. They're not deceptive as genuine evil characters. That's their own self-image. That's how they want to see themselves in a self-serving manner. They are not evil. They're not capable of evil. They're not capable of willpower of any sort. They're capable of acting or mimicry. That's it. They're not capable of evil. They deceive because not even because you feed into that and you are corruptible and you allow yourself to be deceived. That's an American Judeo-Christian narrative. Yeah, it's not the way they really corrupt you. They are corruptible. They are corrupting because they don't really exist in a deeper sense, and you're taken in because there's nothing out there in Western culture that is real. So you're taken in by the next best thing, by the narcissist who proclaims a superior power and a superior status of being. But you're not taken in because they appeal to a vulnerability in your character that you need to fix. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I really don't think. And you're not taken in because it's your fault, or you're a masochist, or you're a doormat, or you're a codependent. You're taken in because there's nothing else really available as a true standard of authority and respectability and wholesomeness and ideological compatibility in Western society today. That's why you're taken in, because of the debasement of everything or most things, almost everything, a lot of things, let's say, in the contemporary Western culture. There's nothing else there. So you're taken in by these charlatans that say, I am something to be reckoned with. I am somebody that represents something. But it's not a real magnetism. It's not a real psychological dynamic. It's just you looking around for whatever seems to be the most real at that time. And because current Western culture is wholly false, have a look at the videos that try to sell you something about your health. Wholly false, wholly deceptive in all sorts of game-playing ways. You are taken in by a narcissist. It's probably nothing to do with your upbringing, probably nothing to do with your psychology, probably just to do with what seems to be more valid, more attractive, more real out there. Narcissists are the experts in emulating the ultra-real in the absence of anything that's really real, in the absence of anybody that follows or obeys or respects their own principles. Narcissists seem to do so. And you're taken in by that because they do seem to be legitimate. They do seem to be more than the average person. And what they have on their side is mimicry and acting. So that's what I now understand. The narcissist is not an evil person. They might be an evil persona. They're not an evil person. They're a fuddy-duddy. They're somebody who's never gone through the developmental stages. They've gone from early childhood into geriatric. And they're afraid of being acknowledged or recognized as geriatric because they've never gone through all those other stages. They've invisibly kind of automatically transcended them, but they haven't actually genuinely transcended them because they haven't developed that depth or that psychological knowledge that comes from engaging with those various maturation stages. They don't know what they are. They don't know what they mean. If you try to mention your own problems to them, they don't know. They can't know, but they seem wise beyond their age, wise beyond their years, and it's a false thing. They have jumped from infantile to elderly. They've jumped from children in their cradle to adults in their dotage, and you're taken in by that because you think that's real. You think they've jumped ahead because they are so very advanced that they merited that leap ahead of you. But you're wrong about that. They jumped ahead because they couldn't stand to go through those various milestones. They couldn't stand to endure the pain of transformation and advancement and confusion and engagement and transformation again. They don't know what that means. So they seem very wise. They seem like they've developed in a way that's jumped ahead of you, that knows it all, that understands it all without having to try. But the real person that they are is somebody who never tried. The real person that they are is somebody who avoided the challenge and simply acted as if they had gone beyond those stages, acted as if they were already in advancement of you, but they hadn't tried. And now they are the infant who is the ultimate fuddy-duddy. And I think that's the real tragedy. That's when, you hear these videos that say, oh, when the narcissist reaches an older age and then they start to feel very regretful and they start to feel as if, they are getting ugly and they cannot play their games anymore. It's what the video is really depicting is old age. It's everybody feels that way in old age. But what's the tragedy for the narcissist is that they've jumped from infancy to old age. And that's what isn't mentioned in those videos, that's the tragedy, that they have not gone through a stage of adolescence. They've not gone through a stage of early maturity and development and confusion and resolution and self-knowledge. They don't know what those are. And that's the real tragedy, that they jump to old age without that experience, without that depth, without that maturation that leads to emptiness. The inability that they have, to engage with pain. They can't engage with pain. They can't engage with complexity. They can't engage with your pain or your complexity for the reason that they've decided to simply jump. They have some issue or some problem that makes them not want to or not able to go through a procedure of trial and error. They believe that trial and error would bring them humiliation. So they jump to, what do they jump to? Maybe I'm thinking, well, maybe they don't realize that they're jumping to geriatric status. They're jumping from infancy to geriatric status because you miss out all the milestones. Well, what is there remaining for you? You jump from infancy to geriatric status. But I think that is what occurs. I know, I'm pretty sure that that's what I see. And I think, basically, the narcissist is a fuddy-duddy. They misrepresent themselves self-servingly as evil, as dangerous, as somebody that could draw you in and cause you harm and whatever. But they are actually just fuddy-duddies. They can't act on their own behalf, and they can't act on yours. That's all they are. And they draw you in because you are looking for something high and better in society. And because in contemporary Western society, that's all you find. The narcissists represent what's high and better in the absence of anything that is genuinely higher and better. They ought to be something higher and better, but the contemporary Western society is deeply and profoundly corrupted. So you fall for narcissists. They're not evil. Not even a little bit. They're infants that didn't know better than to make themselves into geriatrics.